Deep within the icy shell of Europa, Jupiter's sixth moon, darkness had reigned for 500,000 years. In a chamber buried 20 kilometers beneath the surface, the soft blue glow of emergency lights suddenly flickered to life. Condensation dripped from metal walls as heating systems engaged for the first time since the old Earth calendar had marked the year 2735. The central computer system, Sentinel, ran its activation protocols. Its artificial voice echoed through the empty halls of the facility. Revival sequence initiated. Time elapsed since shutdown. 499,872 years, 103 days, 17 hours. Beginning crew revival. Priority 1. Command staff. In the main stasis chamber, frost melted from 6 large metal pods arranged in a circle. The first pod hissed as its seal broke. Captain Thomas opened his eyes, gasping as his lungs filled with air for the first time in 500 millennia. His body shook with violent tremors as warmth returned to his limbs. "Status report," he croaked, his voice raw from disuse. "Revival successful, Captain," Sentinel responded. "Your vital signs are stabilizing. Memory and cognitive functions appear intact." Thomas tried to sit up, but his muscles refused to cooperate. He looked around the chamber, watching as the other pods began their revival sequences. The second pod opened, revealing Dr. Anna, the medical officer. Her eyes fluttered open, filled with confusion. "Did it work?" she asked weakly. When are we?" Thomas stared at the ceiling. Sentinel. Confirmed date and mission status. Current date by old Earth calendar. October 17, 3,234,972. Mission status. Stage 1 complete. Fleet preservation achieved. Now entering Stage 2. Reconnaissance and assessment. Dr. Anna's face paled. "It's been so long," she whispered. "Everyone we knew, everyone, is dust." Thomas finished, just as we planned. The remaining pods opened one by one. Major Robert, the military strategist, emerged next, followed by Engineer Paul, Communications Officer Linda, and finally, Science Officer Mark. Each awakening followed the same pattern: confusion, disorientation, and then the slow, terrible realization of how much time had passed. Major Robert was the first to regain enough strength to stand. He braced himself against his pod and surveyed the room. The ships. The fleet. Hidden fleet status. Operational. Sentinel reported. 97% of vessels preserved at optimal capacity. 3% show minor system degradation. Repair protocols active. Thomas closed his eyes, memories flooding back. The final days of humanity. The Wrathborn invasion. The systematic hunting and extermination of humans across every colony and outpost. Earth itself, burning. "Show me the last transmission," Thomas ordered. A holographic screen appeared in the center of the room. The image showed an older man in a tattered military uniform, his face streaked with blood and ash. Behind him, fires raged across what was once the final human settlement on Mars. "This is Admiral Wilson of the Earth Defense Force," the man said, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "This will be the final transmission from known human forces. The Rathborn have breached our last defenses. There will be no more transmissions after this. To anyone receiving this message in the far future, we were here. Humanity existed. And our final act is not surrender, but patience." The Admiral looked directly into the camera. "Captain Thomas, if you're watching this, then Project Lazarus worked. You are now what remains of humanity's vengeance. The Rathborn believe they have won. Let them believe that for 500,000 years. Let them build their empire on the bones of our people. And then, when they have forgotten even the shape of a human face, when we are nothing but myths to them, wake up." The transmission ended. Silence filled the revival chamber. Engineer Paul broke the quiet. 500,000 years, he murmured. "The solar system will have changed. The galaxy itself will have changed. Science Officer Mark nodded weakly from his pod. But physics hasn't changed, and neither has our mission. Thomas pushed himself to a sitting position, gritting his teeth against the pain in his unused muscles. Sentinel, begin full system activation. Prepare the command center. We need to know what we're facing. Processing, Captain, Sentinel replied. Activating deep space sensors. Initiating stealth protocols. The Rathborn must not detect our awakening. As the crew slowly regained their mobility, Dr. Anna administered revival medications to ease their transition. Their bodies had been preserved through advanced technology, but no human had ever experienced such a long period in stasis before. They were, in every sense, prehistoric creatures now awakening in a future world. Communications Officer Linda made her way to a control panel and began running diagnostics. The quantum entanglement network is still functional, she reported. We can communicate with the fleet without detection. How many ships? Major Robert asked. 10,000 vessels, Sentinel answered, ranging from scout ships to world enders, all built and hidden before the final fall of humanity. All waiting for your command, Captain. Thomas stood shakily, accepting Dr. Anna's support. Show me Earth, he ordered. A new hologram appeared, showing their home planet as it currently existed. The crew fell silent at the sight. The blue world they had known was transformed. Massive monuments covered entire continents. Strange cities sprawled across once familiar landscapes. And in orbit, thousands of alien vessels moved in ceremonial patterns. The Rathborn have made Earth their shrine, Science Officer Mark said quietly. A monument to our extinction. Major Robert's face hardened. They celebrate their genocide. Thomas watched the hologram, his expression unreadable. Sentinel, begin full awakening of the fleet AI systems. Prepare for crew training updates. We've been asleep for 500,000 years. We need to understand what we're facing. And then, Engineer Paul asked. Thomas turned to face his crew, the last humans in existence. And then we remind the galaxy why the Rathborn feared us enough to try to wipe us out. They thought they succeeded. They've had 500,000 years to build their civilization on that belief. His eyes hardened. Now we show them their mistake. As Sentinel systems hummed to life throughout the hidden base, the first part of humanity's longest-planned revenge began to unfold. The hidden fleet, humanity's final legacy, was awakening. And across the galaxy, the Rathborn continued their daily lives, unaware that judgment was stirring from its long sleep. 3 months after awakening, Captain Thomas stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, the flagship of humanity's hidden fleet. Through the view screen, the vastness of space stretched before him, looking deceptively unchanged, despite the passage of 500,000 years. His crew had adapted remarkably well to their new reality, their bodies now recovered from the long sleep. Status report, Thomas said, his voice stronger than it had been during those first confused days after revival. All systems operational, Engineer Paul replied from his station. The stealth technology is performing beyond expectations. We've passed within scanning range of 3 Rathborn outposts without detection. Thomas nodded. The fleet's technology had been cutting edge when they entered stasis, but the autonomous factories hidden throughout the solar system had continued to evolve and improved their designs for centuries before going dormant. The ships they now commanded represented the pinnacle of human innovation, technology that had developed without constraint or ethical limitation, designed for one purpose only: revenge. Communications Officer Linda, any update on the galactic political structure? Thomas asked. Linda looked up from her console. The Rathborn dominate approximately 60% of the galaxy. They've subjugated at least 12 other species that we've identified. Their empire is vast, but not unchallenged. There are resistance movements, particularly in the Orion Arm. Major Robert grunted. Potential allies. Perhaps, Linda answered, but they're scattered and disorganized. The Rathborn have been the dominant power for over 300,000 years. Science Officer Mark approached with a data tablet. "Captain, I've completed my analysis of their communication patterns. The Rathborn language has evolved, but their basic communication protocols remain similar enough for our systems to decrypt. They still use the same mathematical foundations." "What have you learned?" Thomas asked. "The Rathborn civilization is built on a foundation myth, the story of their rise to power through what they call the Great Cleansing," Mark explained. "The extermination of humanity is central to their cultural identity. They believe it proved their superiority and right to rule." Thomas's jaw tightened. "They're proud of what they did to us." "More than proud," Mark continued. "They've elevated it to religious significance. Earth is now a pilgrimage site. The anniversary of humanity's supposed final extinction is their most sacred holiday." Dr. Anna, who had been listening silently, spoke up. "We need to understand them better, see them up close. Intercepted transmissions can only tell us so much." Thomas turned to her. "What are you suggesting?" "An infiltration mission," she replied simply. "We have the technology. The biological reconstruction systems were designed for this purpose." Major Robert frowned. "It's too risky. If we're discovered, nothing changes," Dr. Anna interrupted. "They already believe they killed us all. But we need intelligence that can only be gathered from direct observation." Thomas considered this for a long moment. "Who would go?" "I will," said a voice from the doorway. All heads turned to see Intelligence Officer Lisa entering the bridge. Of all the revival crew, she had spoken the least since awakening, focusing instead on absorbing and analyzing the changed galaxy. "I've been studying their physical appearance, social structures, and behavioral patterns," Lisa continued. "The biological reconstruction chamber can modify my appearance temporarily. I can pass as a minor species within their empire, one with access to their outposts but not important enough to attract attention." Thomas studied her carefully. This wasn't part of the original mission parameters. "The original mission parameters were created 500,000 years ago," Lisa replied evenly. "We need current information to execute our vengeance effectively." After a day of heated debate, Thomas approved the mission. The vengeance positioned itself near a remote Rathborn outpost, a trading station where various subjugated species were permitted limited movement. The biological reconstruction process was painful but successful. Lisa's human features were temporarily altered to match those of the Narration, a species conquered by the Rathborn only 20,000 years ago, recent enough that the Rathborn still permitted them some freedom of movement. "The transformation will last approximately 14 days, Dr. Anna explained as Lisa examined her new appearance in a mirror. Her skin now had a faint blue tint, with ridges along her forehead and neck. "After that, your human DNA will reassert itself." Lisa nodded, testing her new vocal cords. "That's plenty of time." The infiltration went smoothly. Using a small transport vessel stolen from a Narration cargo ship months earlier, Lisa entered the Rathborn outpost with identification codes carefully crafted by Communications Officer Linda. For 10 days, she moved among the Rathborn and their subject peoples, gathering information and insights impossible to obtain from intercepted transmissions. On the 11th day, Lisa stood in a vast hall within the outpost, surrounded by Rathborn civilians and warriors. They were taller than humans had been, with gray-green skin and 4 eyes positioned to provide complete peripheral vision, an evolutionary advantage that had helped them become apex predators. A public announcement system called for attention as a high-ranking Rathborn official took the central platform. "Tomorrow marks the eve of Ascension," the official announced, his voice carrying through the hall. 500,000 years ago, our ancestors completed the Great Cleansing, freeing the galaxy from the poison of humanity. The crowd rumbled with approval. "Humans were weak, yet dangerous," the official continued. "Their technology grew faster than their wisdom. Their emotions made them unpredictable. They spread like a disease through the stars, claiming worlds that were not theirs to take. Our ancestors recognized the threat and acted decisively. Not one human remained when they were finished. This was our species' greatest achievement, the act that proved we were worthy to rule. Lisa recorded everything, her modified eyes containing tiny cameras that transmitted data back to the Vengeance. She watched as the crowd of Rathborn cheered, celebrating genocide as their defining moment. Later, she slipped into a restricted area of the outpost, using access code she had stolen from a careless administrator. In a secure archive, she found historical records, actual footage from the final days of humanity's destruction. She watched, stone-faced, as Rathborn forces systematically demolished human colonies, hunted survivors, and finally bombarded Earth itself. The last recording showed the Rathborn supreme commander of that era standing triumphantly in the ruins of what had once been London. "The human contagion is gone," he declared. "Their worlds are ours. Their memory will fade. In time, they will be nothing but a footnote in the glorious history of the Wrathborn Empire." When Lisa returned to the Vengeance 13 days after departing, her human features already beginning to reassert themselves through patches of painful transformation, she brought with her terabytes of data and a cold certainty that their mission was just. "They've built everything on our destruction," she reported to the command crew. 500,000 years later, and still they celebrate the day they thought they killed the last of us. Captain Thomas nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on the star map showing the vast Wrathborn Empire. "Then it's time they learned the truth," he said quietly. "Humanity wasn't destroyed. We were patient." Around the table, the last humans in existence looked at each other, their purpose clearer than ever. The reconnaissance was complete. Now, the real work would begin. The command center of the Vengeance hummed with activity as the senior crew gathered around the holographic display. The three-dimensional projection showed the current state of the galaxy, with Rathborn-controlled territories highlighted in red, a vast expanse covering nearly 2/3 of the known systems. Captain Thomas studied the map with narrowed eyes. "Show me our assets." Engineer Paul tapped a series of commands into the console. Blue dots appeared throughout the projection. First a few, then dozens, then hundreds, until thousands of points of light glimmered across the map. "What am I looking at?" Thomas asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Our full arsenal, Captain," Paul replied, his face illuminated by the blue glow. "While we slept, the autonomous factories continued their work for nearly 10,000 years before going dormant to avoid detection. What you're seeing is the complete hidden fleet, not just the ships we have here at our Europa base, but throughout the solar system and beyond." Major Robert leaned forward, his expression one of awe. "How many?" 10,000 primary vessels, Paul said, and nearly 100,000 autonomous support craft. The factories built them, hid them, and then erased all evidence of their existence. Communications Officer Linda shook her head in disbelief. "I thought we only had the ships here at Europa." "That was the information we were given before stasis," Paul explained. "A security measure. If any of us had been captured and interrogated, we would have revealed only a small fraction of the true plan." "Where are they all?" asked Dr. Anna, scanning the countless blue dots scattered across the map. "Everywhere," Paul said simply. "Buried under the ice of distant moons, hidden in asteroid belts, submerged in gas giants, even disguised as space debris in areas the Rathborn consider uninhabitable." Thomas absorbed this information, his face unreadable. "Can we control them all?" "With Sentinel's help, yes," Paul confirmed. "Each ship has an AI system designed to coordinate with the others. They've been waiting 500,000 years for our signal." Science Officer Mark joined them at the display. "But there's more, Captain. These ships aren't just weapons of war. They're arcs." "Arcs," Thomas repeated. Mark nodded. "They contain DNA samples of Earth life, plants, animals, even human genetic material. Enough to potentially restore what was lost, if we wish." A heavy silence fell over the command center. The implication was clear. They weren't just planning revenge. They were carrying the seeds of resurrection. "Show me the Rathborn homeworld," Thomas ordered after a long moment. The hologram shifted, focusing on a single planet orbiting a yellow star. Dense urban centers covered much of its surface. "Rath Prime," Intelligence Officer Lisa said, stepping forward. "Population approximately 30 billion. The heart of their empire and their most sacred site after Earth." "Defenses?" Major Robert asked. "Substantial," Lisa answered. "Orbital platforms, defense fleets, planetary shields. But their technology has stagnated over the last 100,000 years. They've had no real rivals, no need to innovate. Meanwhile, our automated factories continued evolving our weapon systems until they went dormant." "So we can win," Robert said, not quite a question. "We can destroy them," Paul corrected. "Completely." Captain Thomas stared at the hologram of Rath Prime, his fingers brushing against the image of the planet that had birthed humanity's destroyers. "Is that what we should do?" he asked quietly. The others looked at him in surprise. "What do you mean, Captain?" Major Robert asked, confusion evident in his voice. "This is our mission, vengeance for Earth, for all of humanity." "Yes," Thomas agreed. "But what form should that vengeance take? Complete annihilation? Does that make us any different from them?" Dr. Anna stepped closer. "We've had this debate before, Thomas. 500,000 years ago, before we entered stasis, the decision was made. By people watching their world burn," Thomas countered. "By humans witnessing genocide. We've awakened in a different galaxy. The Rathborn of today didn't kill our families. Their ancestors did." Lisa's eyes flashed. "They celebrate that genocide. I saw it with my own eyes. It's the foundation of their civilization. I'm not suggesting we do nothing," Thomas said, raising his hands. "I'm asking what victory looks like. Is it the extinction of another species, or something else?" The command center fell silent as the crew considered his words. Finally, Engineer Paul spoke. "We have options, Captain. The fleet was designed for maximum flexibility. We can strike military targets while sparing civilian populations. We can target their leadership. We can disable rather than destroy. Or we can make them face what they did," Science Officer Mark suggested. "Force them to confront their history honestly, not as a twisted point of pride." Major Robert shook his head. "They killed everyone, Captain. Everyone." "I know," Thomas said softly. "I watched Earth fall from the last evacuation ship. I saw my home burn. But I also remember what humans were before the end. Not just victims, but creators, explorers, dreamers. If we only act as destroyers, what are we preserving of humanity besides its worst impulse? Revenge." The debate continued for days. The command crew argued, sometimes bitterly, about the shape their vengeance should take. They reviewed historical records of the final war, studying the tactics the Rathborn had used to hunt humans to extinction. They analyzed the current state of the Wrathborn Empire, identifying key vulnerabilities and command structures. On the fourth day, Thomas called for a decision. "We will strike in 3 phases," he announced, standing before his crew. "First, a demonstration of power, targeted attacks on military installations to show that their defenses mean nothing to us. Second, a revelation of truth. We will broadcast the actual history of their great cleansing throughout their empire, showing the horror of what they celebrate. And third," he paused, making eye contact with each member of his command staff. "A choice. A choice." Linda repeated. "Yes," Thomas confirmed. "We will give them the opportunity to acknowledge their crime and make reparations. If they refuse, then we unleash the full power of the hidden fleet upon their homeworld." Major Robert frowned. "And if they agree? What reparations could possibly balance the scale against genocide?" "They can relinquish Earth," Thomas said simply. "Return our homeworld to us, abandon their empire, and live under limitations we will impose. Their civilization will continue, but their days of dominance will end." "And if they resist?" asked Lisa, her expression hard. Thomas's eyes grew cold. Then they will join humanity in extinction. The choice will be theirs. The plan took shape over the following weeks. The hidden fleet began to activate, ships stirring from their long dormancy throughout the solar system and beyond. Weapons were checked, systems upgraded, and coordinates plotted. The Rathborn, believing themselves unchallenged masters of the galaxy, remained unaware that judgment approached. As the day of the first strike drew near, Captain Thomas stood alone on the observation deck of the Vengeance, looking out at the stars. Behind him, the last humans prepared for war. Before him lay a galaxy that had forgotten them. Soon, that would change. "We're ready, Captain," Major Roberts said, appearing at Thomas's side. Thomas nodded. "Send the activation signal. Wake the fleet." Across the galaxy, thousands of hidden ships began to power up their engines. Humanity's vengeance, 500,000 years in the making, was about to begin. The Rathborn military outpost orbiting Proxima Centauri's third planet was considered impregnable. 30 defense satellites, each armed with quantum disruptors, formed a protective web around the massive station. Below, on the planet's surface, 2 million Rathborn soldiers trained in a high-gravity environment, preparing for deployment throughout the Empire. Commander Grell stood on the command deck, his 4 eyes scanning routine reports. In his 300 years of service, nothing unexpected had ever happened at this outpost. The Wrathborn Empire had known peace for millennia. Occasional rebellions from subject species were quickly crushed, and no outside force dared challenge their dominance. "Sir," a junior officer called, "sensors are detecting an anomaly at the edge of the system." Grell didn't bother looking up. "Cosmic radiation. Run the standard diagnostic." "I already did, sir. It's not registering as any known phenomenon. It appears to be moving." Now Grell raised his head, mandibles clicking in irritation. "Put it on screen." The main view screen activated, showing empty space at first. Then, like water rippling, the vacuum seemed to distort. A massive shape emerged from nothingness. A sleek, dark vessel unlike any Rathborn design. "Impossible," Grell whispered. Before he could issue orders, more ripples appeared. 10, 20, 50 ships materialized, their hulls absorbing rather than reflecting light. They formed a perfect attack formation. "Raise shields. Contact Imperial Command," Grell shouted. "Unknown fleet, this is Commander Grell of the Wrathborn Empire. Identify yourselves immediately or—" His words died in his throat as a beam of energy, so concentrated it appeared solid, lanced from the lidship. It struck the nearest defense satellite, which didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, its particles dispersed at the atomic level. Aboard the Vengeance, Captain Thomas watched the first strike through the view screen. "Precision fire only," he ordered. "Target military assets. No civilian casualties." Major Robert nodded, directing the fleet's movements with practiced efficiency. First defensive ring neutralized. Moving to secondary targets. The hidden fleet moved with perfect coordination, each ship functioning as part of a single organism. Weapons that had been theoretical when humanity fell now demonstrated their devastating effectiveness. Defense satellites vanished. Communications arrays dissolved. The outpost's shields, designed to withstand the strongest known weapons in the galaxy, flickered and failed under weapons they had never been designed to resist. "Their distress signal has been sent," Communications Officer Linda reported. "The Rathborn Imperial Fleet has been alerted." Thomas nodded grimly. "Good. Let them come." On Wrath Prime, the Rathborn homeworld, Supreme Commander Vrax was awakened from sleep by urgent alerts. He rushed to the Imperial Command Center, where chaos reigned. "Report," he bellowed, silencing the room. Admiral Torque stepped forward, his posture rigid with tension. "The Proxima Centauri outpost is under attack. 57 ships of unknown origin. Our defenses are failing. Vrax repeated incredulously. "That outpost has our most advanced defensive systems. The attackers are using technology we've never encountered, Torque explained. Energy signatures that don't match any known weapons, and they appeared from nowhere. Our early warning systems detected nothing until they were already inside the defensive perimeter. Vrax stared at the tactical display, watching as the outpost's defenses crumbled. Who are they? Rebels? A new species from beyond explored space. Unknown, Supreme Commander. They've made no communications, issued no demands. Vrax's 4 eyes narrowed. Deploy the 7th Fleet. I want those ships destroyed and their origin determined. Back at Proxima Centauri, the battle, if it could be called that, was already ending. The Rathborn outpost had been systematically dismantled, its weapons neutralized, its communication capabilities destroyed. The station itself remained intact, its terrified crew huddled inside. All military targets neutralized, Major Robert reported. The station's life support systems remain functional. Thomas stood. Open a channel to the station. All frequencies, all languages. Linda nodded. Channel open, Captain. Thomas took a deep breath. Attention Rathborn Outpost. This is Captain Thomas of the Human Hidden Fleet. 500,000 years ago, your ancestors believed they had exterminated humanity from the galaxy. They were wrong. We have returned. This attack is the first of many. Your empire will fall. Your worlds will burn. As you did to us, so we shall do to you. On the view screen, they could see the stunned faces of the Rathborn command staff. Commander Grell stepped forward, mandibles working soundlessly for a moment before he found his voice. Humans? He finally managed. That's impossible. The Great Cleansing eliminated your species completely. Clearly not, Thomas replied coldly. We have been waiting, watching, preparing. Your civilization is built on the murder of ours. Now we have returned to balance the scales of justice. These are ancient events, Grell protested. None alive today participated in the Great Cleansing. Yet you celebrated, Thomas countered. You have built monuments to genocide. You teach your children that your greatest achievement was the extermination of another sentient species. Today, that species has returned. Before Grell could respond, Linda interrupted. Captain, multiple hyperspace signatures detected. The Rathborn 7th Fleet is arriving. Thomas nodded. End transmission. He turned to Major Robert. Prepare for Phase 2. 63 Rathborn warships emerged from hyperspace, their massive forms arranged in attack formation. Each was a city in space, housing tens of thousands of warriors and enough firepower to reduce planets to ash. They had crushed rebellions across 3 galaxies without ever suffering a meaningful defeat. Admiral Krell, commander of the 7th Fleet, allowed himself a moment of satisfaction as his ships surrounded the mysterious attackers. Whatever these creatures were, claiming to be humans, of all things, they would soon learn the price of challenging the Wrathborn Empire. Enemy vessels, he broadcast, you are surrounded by the might of the Rathborn 7th Fleet. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Thomas smiled. No response. Activate the phase disruptors. Engineer Paul worked his console. Phase disruptors active, Captain. Ready on your command. Thomas studied the Rathborn fleet. These ships, these warriors, were the direct descendants of those who had burned Earth. Their ancestors had hunted humans like animals, had celebrated their supposed extinction. Now, finally, humanity would have its answer. Fire, Thomas ordered. From the hidden fleet, invisible waves of energy pulsed outward. They weren't explosions or beams, but something more fundamental, alterations to the basic physics of localized space. The Rathborn ships didn't explode or break apart. Instead, their systems simply stopped functioning. Engines died. Weapons went offline. Life support faltered. 63 mighty warships hung helpless in space, their crews suddenly fighting for survival rather than victory. Admiral Krell stared in horror at his dead console. Around him, the bridge of his flagship was illuminated only by emergency lighting. "What is happening?" he demanded, but no one had answers. The view screen flickered back to life, showing the face of Captain Thomas. "Admiral," Thomas said calmly, "your fleet has not been destroyed. We could have annihilated you, but chose not to. Instead, consider this a demonstration and a warning. Your ships will regain minimal power in approximately 48 hours, enough for life support and communications, but not weapons or propulsion." "Who are you?" Krell whispered. "We told you. We are humanity. We have returned to reclaim what was taken from us, and to hold accountable those who tried to erase us from existence." "But humans are extinct," Krell protested. "Your species died out 500,000 years ago." Thomas's eyes hardened. "That's what you were taught. The truth is about to be shared across your empire." As the hidden fleet disappeared back into their cloaking fields, leaving the disabled Rathborn vessels drifting in space, a signal propagated throughout the galaxy. It bypassed Rathborn security protocols, overrode entertainment frequencies, and appeared on every communication device in Rathborn-controlled space. Throughout the Empire, billions of Rathborn watched in confusion and then mounting horror as the true history of the Great Cleansing played before their eyes. Not as a glorious victory, but as the atrocity it had been. Centuries of propaganda crumbled against the weight of actual historical footage, preserved for 500,000 years by those who had sworn never to let the truth die with them. On Wrath Prime, Supreme Commander Vrax watched the broadcast with growing dread. "Shut it down," he ordered, but his technical staff could only shake their heads helplessly. The signal couldn't be blocked. "Supreme Commander," Admiral Torque said quietly, "if these truly are humans, if they have technology that can disable our most powerful fleet without destruction, what else might they be capable of?" Vrax had no answer. For the first time in recorded Rathborn history, their absolute dominance of the galaxy was in question. And somewhere out there, the last humans watched as the Empire built on their supposed extinction began to understand that judgment had finally arrived. 1 month after the first strike, the galaxy trembled with uncertainty. The Wrathborn Empire, undefeated for 500,000 years, found itself facing an enemy they had believed extinct, an enemy with technology far beyond their own. The hidden fleet had struck 16 more military targets since Proxima Centauri, each attack executed with surgical precision. No civilian casualties. No planets bombarded. Just the systematic dismantling of the Rathborn war machine. On Wrath Prime, Supreme Commander Vrax faced the Imperial Council, their usual confidence replaced by barely concealed panic. "They could have destroyed us already," said Councillor Morn, the eldest member. "Why haven't they?" "They're playing with us," hissed Defense Minister Krall, "torturing us with fear before they strike the final blow." Vrax looked out at the faces of the most powerful Rathborn in existence. "The humans have made no demands beyond broadcasting the truth of the Great Cleansing. Our analysts believe they're demonstrating their power while giving us time to contemplate our situation." "Our situation?" Krall laughed bitterly. "Our situation is that we face extinction at the hands of a species we thought we had exterminated." An aide rushed into the chamber, interrupting the council. "Supreme Commander, the human fleet has been detected approaching Wrath Prime. Hundreds of ships, maybe thousands." Silence fell over the council chamber. Then, every communication device in the room activated simultaneously. Captain Thomas's face appeared on each screen. "Leaders of the Rathborn," he said, his voice steady. "You have witnessed our power. You have seen the truth of your history. Now you face a choice. In 6 hours, I will arrive at your homeworld to hear your decision. Choose wisely. Your civilization's survival depends on it." The transmission ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. Councillor Morn was the first to speak. "What decision? What do they want from us?" "They want everything," Vrax replied quietly. "They want what we took from them: a homeworld, a future, justice." Aboard the Vengeance, Captain Thomas sat alone in his quarters. On his desk sat a small plant, a descendant of Earth flora, grown from seeds preserved for 500,000 years. He gently touched one green leaf, marveling at its simple resilience. A chime announced a visitor. "Enter," Thomas called. Dr. Anna stepped inside, her face troubled. "The fleet is assembled, Captain. We'll reach Wrath Prime in 5 hours." Thomas nodded. "Good." Anna hesitated, then asked, "Have you decided?" "What the Council decided 500,000 years ago still stands," Thomas replied. "The Rathborn must answer for what they did." "But what form will that answer take?" Anna pressed. "Will we be executioners today, or something else?" Thomas looked at the small plant. "That depends on them." The Vengeance led the hidden fleet toward Wrath Prime. Behind the flagship came 10,000 ships of varying sizes, their hulls absorbing light rather than reflecting it, making them appear as black voids against the stars. They moved in perfect formation, a testament to both their technology and their purpose. On the bridge, the command crew worked in focused silence. This moment, the culmination of a plan 500,000 years in the making, weighed heavily on them all. "We're being hailed," Communications Officer Linda announced. "It's the Rathborn Supreme Commander." Thomas straightened in his command chair. On screen, Supreme Commander Vrax appeared, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly, a sign of extreme stress in Rathborn physiology. "Captain Thomas, I speak for the Imperial Council and all Rathborn." Thomas said nothing, simply waiting. Vrax seemed unsettled by the silence. "We have reviewed the historical records you broadcast. If they are accurate—" "They are," Thomas interrupted. "If they are accurate," Vrax continued, "then the foundation of our civilization rests upon a moral catastrophe. The Great Cleansing was not the glorious victory we were taught, but a genocide of unforgivable scale." Thomas leaned forward. "And yet your ancestors celebrated it, built monuments to it, made it the cornerstone of your identity." "Yes," Vrax admitted. "We cannot change the past, Captain, but perhaps we can address the present. What do you want from us? What would satisfy humanity's need for justice?" Thomas glanced at his crew, then back to the screen. 3 things. First, the immediate dissolution of the Wrathborn Empire. Your subjugated species will be freed. Your military disbanded. Second, Earth will be returned to humanity, untouched and intact. You will abandon our homeworld entirely. Third, the Rathborn will live under restrictions we will determine, confined to your original star system, your technology limited, your society rebuilt without the mythology of the Great Cleansing. Vrax's mandibles clicked nervously. "You're asking us to surrender everything we are. We're offering you existence," Thomas corrected, "which is more than your ancestors offered humanity. And if we refuse?" Thomas's expression hardened. "Then we will do to Wrath Prime what your ancestors did to Earth. Your species will join the list of extinct civilizations. The choice is yours." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Major Robert approached Thomas. "They'll never agree. Their pride won't allow it." "Perhaps," Thomas acknowledged. "But they've never faced extinction before. It clarifies the mind." For 5 tense hours, the hidden fleet held position above Wrath Prime. On the planet below, billions of Rathborn looked up at the ships that held their fate. The Imperial Council debated furiously, their conversation swinging between defiance and desperate acquiescence. Finally, Vrax contacted the Vengeance again. His posture was different now, shoulders slumped, head slightly bowed. "Captain Thomas, the Imperial Council has reached its decision." He paused, visibly struggling. "We accept your terms. The Rathborn Empire will end. Earth will be returned to humanity. We will submit to your restrictions." Thomas studied the alien leader, searching for deception. "Why?" he asked simply. Vrax seemed surprised by the question. "Why what? Why accept? Your military advisors must have urged resistance." "They did," Vrax confirmed. "But then I asked them a question. What would humans have done?" 500,000 years ago, if offered the same choice, would they have chosen survival over pride? Thomas felt a jolt of understanding. And what answer did you reach? That humans chose to wait, to plan, to survive at any cost, so that justice might eventually be served. Vrax's 4 eyes met Thomas's 2. We are learning from our enemy, Captain. We choose survival, even a diminished one, over extinction. Thomas nodded slowly. A wise choice. Prepare your people. Representatives of the Hidden Fleet will arrive on your world within 24 hours to begin the transition. As the transmission ended, Thomas turned to his crew. Implement the containment protocols. I want monitoring stations surrounding Rathborn within the hour. Yes, Captain, Major Robert replied, already issuing orders. Dr. Anna approached Thomas as the bridge crew dispersed to their duties. What happens now? She asked softly. Thomas looked out at the view screen, at the planet that had birthed humanity's destroyers. Now we rebuild. Not just a fleet or an outpost, but Earth itself. We bring back what was lost. Can we? After so long. Thomas thought of the small plant in his quarters, a green reminder that life persisted. We have the genetic material. We have the technology. It won't be the same Earth, but it will be ours again. And the Rathborn, she pressed. They'll live under our watch, not as slaves or subjects, but as a contained civilization. Perhaps in time, they'll become something better than what they were. As the Hidden Fleet began the complex process of dismantling an empire and restoring a world, Thomas found himself on the observation deck, gazing at distant Earth, still visible as a blue dot among the stars. Soon, humans would walk its surface again. Trees would grow. Animals would roam. Life would return to the world that had birthed them. It wasn't the revenge that the architects of the Hidden Fleet had originally envisioned. There would be no Rathborn extinction, no planetary bombardments to mirror what humans had suffered. Instead, there would be justice, harsh but not genocidal. The Rathborn would face consequences, but they would survive. Thomas wondered if the humans who had created this plan, who had gone into stasis with vengeance burning in their hearts, would have approved of this outcome. Perhaps not all of them. But as he looked out at the stars, at a galaxy now forever changed by humanity's return, he felt certain that they had preserved something more important than the ability to destroy. They had preserved humanity's capacity for mercy, the very thing that made them different from those who had once tried to wipe them out. Earth is waiting, he said quietly to himself. Let's go home.